بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد. Traveling is described as قطعة من العذاب. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam describes traveling as a form of punishment, meaning you don't have the comfort of your home, you don't have the comfort of your own schedule, you don't have the companionship of your family. So traveling can be very difficult and disorienting for your own schedule. That said, if traveling is done according to the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, then even the process of traveling can be understood as a form of ibadah and worship. So imagine I have a work travel to do. I have a family vacation to do. I have a group of friends and we're going out for some leisure time. Whatever we're doing, we're traveling. There are certain adab and etiquettes that we can follow according to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of traveling. There are two hadith that we're going to cover today. And what are they? Number one, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us on the authority of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, who says, "Ar-rakibu shaytanun, wal-rakibani shaytanan, wal-thalathatu rakabun." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, when one person travels alone, he's accompanied by a shaitan. When two people travel, there are two shaitans. But when they travel as a group, they are protected. When they travel as a group, they are protected. The etiquette and the adab that we're covering in the hadith today is a person should limit their alone traveling as much as possible. It is very unsafe and unhealthy for a person to constantly travel alone for many reasons. The first reason why traveling alone or even traveling with two people is not safe, it's not safe from a physical perspective, but it's not also safe from an akhirah perspective. From the physical perspective, it makes sense, right? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving some advice. If you're going to travel in an unsafe place and you're alone, somebody could rob you, somebody could take something from you, and you have nobody to get help from. So it's important that you're never traveling alone. But from the perspective of the akhirah, it's also important. Because when a person is alone, all the whispering from shaitan comes. Imagine a person is traveling internationally all by themselves. They know nobody's watching me, so I can do everything haram and nobody's ever going to know about it. I'm by myself, I'm going to go to this place, I'm going to go to that place, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, under the pretense that I have some work to do. Problem with that is, nobody is there and now shaitan's going to whisper, "Oh, you know what, you're alone. You can do whatever you want and nobody's going to know about it." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, even if there's two people, it can be equally risky. Because if there's two people, the moment one person goes alone, the other person's alone, and then they can do whatever they want. But the moment you have 3-4 people, now you have a group of people and it's much more safe. All the time there's going to be a group of people that you are working with. Now, does this mean that traveling alone is haram? Absolutely not. People have responsibilities. If I have a work responsibility, what am I supposed to do? I have to go and fly for business, I have to go and fly for a work call, a project. If I have to travel with people, that's fine. The advice over here is, to the best of your ability, try either not to travel alone or have people around you. And this is very important. Any person who is a bachelor and who's alone and has no responsibility understands the whisperings of shaitan that I'm all by myself in this random country where nobody can see me, I can do what I want. But when there are people around, now they begin thinking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me, but also other people are watching me. If I get caught doing this, what's going to happen? So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's first advice about the etiquettes of traveling is, if you are ever traveling, if you are forced to travel alone, all right, that's fine. But always try to have a few people with you whenever you are going. It is good for your worldly safety, but it's also good for your akhirah, because when you have other people, for instance, I'm trying to wake up for Fajr and I'm going on a work travel. If I'm by myself and it's, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh man, I got a work meeting at 9 o'clock, I'm just gonna make my Fajr qada. I don't care because I'm alone. But if there's another person, he's gonna say, you know what, you wake me up. And then I'm also gonna feel shy that, you know what, I'm all by myself, this person is waking up for Fajr, I'm not waking up for Fajr. That's why it's good to always travel in a group, because that way, not only am I getting the protection of, people being with me, but also I get the encouragement from other people. That's the first advice. The second advice, the hadith is narrated in Sunan Abi Dawud. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, إِذَا خَرَجَ ثَلَاثَةٌ فِي سَفَرٍ فَلْيُؤَمِّرُوا أَحَدَهُمْ. That whenever people are traveling in a group, and that's the ideal scenario, you never travel alone, try to have 3 people, 4 people, you're traveling together. Whenever you're doing that, one person should be appointed as the Amir. One person should be appointed as the responsible brother whose decision will be heard. Because what ends up happening is, if I am traveling alone, ultimately whatever decision I make is going to go for me. I want to wake up at 10:30, I'm going to wake up at 10:30. I want to go eat lunch at 3 o'clock, I'm going to eat lunch at 3 o'clock. It doesn't matter. But if we're moving as a group, it's necessary that we make one person responsible for decision making. Why? Because let's say I have a habit of waking up after Fajr Salah, I sleep, and then I wake up at 11 o'clock. My friend, he has a habit after Fajr, he doesn't sleep. And my other friend, he has a habit that he wakes up at 9 o'clock, and we need to work together. I'm waking up at 11, he's not sleeping after Fajr, and he's waking up at 10. We're never going to get anywhere. And we will always have constant disagreements and bickering. So the advice that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives in this hadith is, we need to appoint one person as a responsible brother. Now, it's important to understand, when people are traveling, and one person has the responsibility of being the Amir, one person has the responsibility of making the decision, he is not a king, he is not a prime minister, he is not somebody's father. He is actually someone with extra responsibility who has to decide not for his own benefit, rather for the benefit of everybody together. Whenever Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to go out and make decisions, he would always take people's opinions. So to give you an example, it came time for the battle of Badr. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is successful in this battle, and you have people who are captives. People who are captives. Now, what do you do with the captives? There are different decisions. Umar radiallahu anhu says, these captives, if we let them go, they're going to come back and harm us. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very interested in the decision of Umar. But then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said, no. Instead of having them destroyed and killed, let's keep them and ransom them. Even though Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's decision was that something else, because the mashwara said we're going to go in a particular direction, we go in a particular direction. It's very important. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood all the time that it's not, okay, it's my way or the highway. The way Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, فَلْيُؤَمِّرُ أَحَدَهُمْ, means one person has the extra responsibility of listening to everybody, and we go with their opinion. You know how you have sometimes what you call a tiebreaker? One person says yes, one person says no, and you need somebody as a tiebreaker. The tiebreaker is equal to everybody in terms of authority. It just so happens that there's an equal footing, and we need one person to tip the scales in one person's favor. That tiebreaker doesn't have an extra vote. When you have 3 people, one person's vote has a particular weight, another person's vote has another weight, and that third person has the equal weight. It just so happens that he is a tiebreaker. So the advice that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving us over here is that when you're going to travel, you have to understand that you're not traveling alone. There are other people's rights involved. And this is important in terms of a community effort. The advice over here isn't only about traveling. The advice over here is, when you work together as a community, you have to learn to sacrifice your own convenience, your own comfort, for the sake of the better good. You know, whenever there's a project, the perfect example is the community as a masjid. If there's a masjid with 1,000 people, then there's going to be 1,000 different intentions of how things are going to happen. But we have to learn that more important than my personal interest is what's in the best interest of the Muslim community, what's in the best interest of the masjid. Now, coming back to the topic, the adab and the etiquettes of traveling. What are certain things that we need to do? The first thing Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says is never travel alone, have a company with you. In fact, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us in another hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari that لو أن الناس يعلمون من الوحدة ما أعلم ما سار راكب بليل وحده. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, I know about the jinn, I know about the shayateen, I know about the evil effects that are there. If anybody knows what I know about the harms of the jinn at nighttime, nobody would ever travel alone. They would always have other people. But if a person has to travel alone, what are you going to do? You recite your du'as. You stay in touch with somebody. You make sure people are aware of your whereabouts. You make sure you're constantly praying your salah. You have somebody keeping account of you. This is very simple. If I'm traveling alone, I'm going to make sure I'm either texting my spouse, my children, my parents about a few things. One, where am I? Two, make sure you keep me encouraged to do my ibadah. That I'll tell my spouse, message me and ask me, did I pray my salah or not? Because what happens, nighttime, if you're traveling, you're in the hotel, you're going to call and go like, oh, how are the kids? Did the kids brush their teeth? Did they go to sleep? MashaAllah, end of story. But what about, okay, did you pray your salah today? You're by yourself. It's Jumu'ah. Did you go to the masjid? Where were you today? Did you make sure that you weren't caught up in the wrong company? Were you making sure that you didn't do anything wrong? These are the types of conversations we should have. And the second thing Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says is whenever you're traveling, make sure there is one person who has a bit of extra authority. Having extra authority is helpful because the nature of humankind is what? It's either my way or the highway. I want people to listen to me. If they don't listen to me, then I'm sorry. We need to learn to have somebody a bit above us so that there could be mutual cohesion. That's the whole benefit of mashwara. That's the whole benefit of listening to everybody's opinion and coming to a conclusion. So, in summary, there are so many etiquettes we can talk about. Last week, we also talked about some of the etiquettes. Last week, we talked about Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, ideally travel on a Thursday. Why travel on a Thursday? So that you don't miss your Jumu'ah. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would also say, if you're going to travel, try to travel early in the morning. Don't travel at nighttime. We covered last week, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, whenever you travel, make sure you're traveling in the morning while you're well rested. Not like 2 o'clock in the night and your eyes are closing and it's very dangerous. You don't know what's going to happen. And today we covered 2 adab. The first adab is, try your best to travel in a group. Don't travel alone for your worldly protection, but also for your ukhrawi protection. And number 2, whenever you're traveling, try to assign responsibilities. The same thing applies when you're traveling with the family as well. Let's say me, my wife, and my 3 kids, we're traveling together. We need to let everybody have some responsibility. I will tell my son, he's 6 years old, your responsibility is to make sure when salah time comes in, you remind us. He's going to feel happy. He's going to feel like he has a job. I'm going to tell my spouse, my wife, your responsibility is to make sure whenever it's lunchtime, whenever it's dinner time, everything is organized. My responsibility is to make sure we're getting from point A to point B. I will make sure that the hotels are organized. I will make sure that any directions, anything related to the safety of this car, I am going to be in charge of it. When you assign responsibilities, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's advice is there's going to be barakah in your travel. But there has to be one person above. If 2 people are going to be in charge, it's going to ruin the entire journey. Because I'm going to say we're going to do X, he's going to say we're going to do Y, and the entire thing is going to get ruined. This is not only a mubah, it's highly encouraged that one person has extra responsibility. And the last thing I'm going to say is, if it turns out that when we're picking who's going to be responsible, I'm getting my family together, and I say to them, okay, who should be responsible today? Me, my wife, the elder brother. Just out of convenience sake, we're saying this. And everybody's saying, you know what? Because you're busy and you have some work-related stuff, we want the eldest brother to be the Amir for the travel. I shouldn't feel that, oh, you know what, this is wrong. If he's a responsible person, let's say he's 20 years old, he's responsible, he can take care of himself, he's making good decisions, I should be willing to say, Alhamdulillah, whatever he says, inshallah, because we're following an Amir, there's going to be barakah in whatever he says. These are some of the adab of traveling. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to inspire us to travel according to the sunnah. If a travel is a portion of adab and it's difficult, but if it's done according to the sunnah, it can be a form of ibadah. That's why we make the dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of our travels according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May He protect us from the whisperings of shaitan. May He allow us to travel in a group, and may He inspire us to appoint and assign responsibilities according to the way taught to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Subhanallah wa bihamdih, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.